Building arrows is a mix of art and science. Every feather, finish, and crest shows your dedication to the craftsmanship of the arrow, while every cut, taper, and measurement ensures that your arrow is going to fly true. It all starts with the arrow's shaft, the backbone of your arrow. Most modern shafts today are made out of cedar because it's light, straight, and reliable. But historically, people used whatever they had: poplar, ash, even bamboo. And of course, the wood you choose does change how your arrow feels and how it flies, but it won't make that much of a difference in the end. Just make sure to consult a spine chart and get an appropriately stiff arrow. Next, you're gonna need tips and nocks. Personally, I prefer glue-on parts. If they break or something happens to your arrow, they're easy enough to maintain or even just flat out replace. The only thing you really need to be certain of here is that the size of your tip and your nock match the size of your shaft. Most tips are about 125 grains, but you can get a heavier tip if you want more impact, or you can get a lighter tip if you want your arrow to fly faster. Then you've got the fletchings. Arrows could theoretically have anywhere between 0 and infinite feathers, but 3 is the most common. To hold it all together, you're gonna need some glue. You're also gonna want a finish to seal the moisture into your wood and make sure that your arrows don't rot over time. I'm also gonna show you how to collar your arrow using thread. For your tools, you absolutely 100% cannot get by without having some kind of saw. You're also gonna want a nice taper tool. Optionally, you might want a fletching jig. You can find everything you need at a place like Lancaster Archery or Three River Archery. They're both really great suppliers for traditional archers. I know it sounds like a lot, but with just these simple tools and materials, you can make arrows that look beautiful and fly straight relatively easily. Regardless of whether you're into the science of arrows or the art of arrows, this is everything you're gonna need to make your first set. The first step of the arrow making process is preparing the shafts. And this is where a little bit of precision can make all the difference. Start by measuring your arrow length. Most people already know theirs, but if you don't, a good rule of thumb is to take your draw length plus about 2 inches. I recommend bundling your shafts together when you cut. This way you know every arrow will come out the exact same length. I'll be using a coping saw here, but you can use a bandsaw, a hacksaw, anything that gives you a clean cut. After cutting, it's time to taper the tip and the nock of the shaft. I'll be using a traditional only taper tool, which has 2 parts. The longer blade is for tapering the tip, and the shorter blade is for the nock. These tapers are what will allow you to attach your glue-on tips and nocks securely. Just be warned, this specific taper tool is not for hardwood shafts. It's not for ash. It's for things like cedar, poplar, or spruce. Next comes stain. A good stain can change the color of an arrow to just about anything you want. I use a lot of purple on mine, but many people prefer traditional wood tones. For this set though, we're gonna keep it simple and leave these their natural color. After that, it's time to seal the wood. I'll be using shellac here, but there are plenty of great finishes out there. If you already have a favorite, that's perfect. If not, just make sure you read the instructions on your finish carefully to make sure that you're properly protecting your shafts. With your shaft measured, cut, tapered, and sealed, you've built a solid foundation for the rest of your arrow. Now that the shaft is ready, it's time to glue on the tips and the nocks. And for the most part, this is just as simple as it sounds. You're gluing one thing to another. The important part is choosing the right glue. Your glue has to stand up to heat because every time your arrow hits a target, the friction between the tip of the arrow and the target generates heat. If your glue can't handle that, your tip will pop right off. That's why basic hot glues are a bad choice. And while we're at it, try to avoid water-soluble glues. They just suck. Instead, I recommend using a strong super glue, something like this Gorilla Glue. It works great, it bonds securely, it can handle heat, and it'll keep your tips where they belong. With the tips glued in place, your arrows are one step closer to being ready for the range. Fletchings start with picking your feathers. For this build, I'm using 4-inch shield cut right wing feathers. Whatever you choose, make sure all the feathers match. They need to be the same length, the same cut, and from the same wing of the bird. The purpose of the fletching is to create drag on the arrow, which stabilizes the flight pattern and ensures a more accurate shot. Larger fletchings mean more stability, but less speed and distance, where shorter fletchings fly faster and hit harder, but with less stability. Most people use 3 fletchings, but in this build, I'm gonna use 4. Just like with larger fletchings, using more fletchings will add stability at the cost of speed and distance. The jig that I'm using makes a 4-feather fletch simple, and it has a nice bonus. The arrows can be knocked either way on the string and still shoot properly. This is the Avalon Hexagon 6-arrow jig. It does 6 arrows at once, and it costs less than most single arrow jigs. The trade-off is that it's cheap because it comes with no assembly instructions and it's a pain to put together. But once you do, it works great. To put a feather on, you just place it in the clamp, add glue, I like Gorilla Glue as we've discussed, and you set it against the shaft. Just be sure that your feather isn't backwards. The tall side of the feather should always be closest to the knock. If you're feeling thrifty, a door hinge can work really good as a clamp, but I would recommend avoid doing it by hand. Feathers have a natural curve, and having some kind of clamp really helps keep it in place with the glue sets. Just remember your feather placements, evenly placed around the arrow. At this point, technically your arrows are range ready. However, I'm gonna add just a little bit more to them to make them comfortable. The last step before shooting is to apply your collaring to your fletching. This helps protect the feathers from scraping against your bow, or worse, your hand. To start, lay a short piece of thread along the shaft at the base of the fletching. Begin wrapping over it, and after 5 or 6 passes, pull that extra thread off to the side. You can pull it nice and tight here because that tension helps the wrap stay snug on the arrow. Keep wrapping from about 1/4 inch before the fletching down to about 1/4 inch past where it ends. Thinner thread works best. It just seems to cover the pokey feather bits better. When you reach the end, leave the thread long, make a loop, and feed it back through the wraps in the opposite direction. As you pull it tight, the loose end tucks neatly under the collar. No bulky knots and no unraveling. Once it's locked down, trim the excess thread. Finally, dab the collar with a little glue to keep everything secure. Gorilla Glue works fine, but I like white glue. It dries clear and it's safer to touch. Once that cures, you're ready to shoot. And of course, if you already know how to serve a bowstring, this process probably feels very familiar. That's it. We've gone from a wooden shaft to a finished, fletched, and collared arrow. And they're range ready now. You can stop here if you're content and all your arrows can be made in this style, or keep experimenting with your own styles, different feathers, and different finishes. There's nothing quite like shooting with gear you made yourself.